Hello and welcome back to HR Stew. My name is Regina Dyerly.
And I'm Holly Knowles.
And this is HR Stew.
There are many ways to leave an employer. Some choose to put in their 2-week notice, train their replacement, and make a smooth transition. Others, might take a different approach. Whether it's quiet quitting or bridge burning, this episode we're talking resignation. No matter how someone quits, it can be a difficult situation for everyone involved. But with 4.5 million people in the US quitting every single month, the topic is unavoidable. Let me begin by introducing our guest today, Debra Fowler. Debra is Vida HR's very own Director of Compliance and Policy. With over 11 years of experience, Debra leads in handling complicated compliance situations and ensuring all clients are up to date on local, state, and federal legislation. Welcome, Debra.
Welcome, Debra.
Thanks, guys.
So glad to have you here.
To get the show started, I have a question for you all. What has been your most memorable resignation story, whether you were the one resigning or you witnessed it?
So mine was when I resigned from an employer. I gave 2 weeks notice, and I had been there, I'd say a couple of years, but I gave a 2 weeks notice, and the owner of the company refused to talk to me, look at me, any of the above, and made the last 2 weeks of me being an employee there the most uncomfortable experience of my life. And I don't know, I just, if people resign, they want to strive to do something different or to do something better or for more money, like all of these reasons. And I did everything you asked me to do. You would think that it would be, they're excited for me and they're excited for this new chapter, and she was not at all.
Well, she did reaffirm your decision in resigning.
Agreed.
So, no regrets there, I'm sure.
Agreed.
I think it's hard for employers, right? When somebody that they feel they can rely on or is a top talent leaves, what are they going to do? They didn't prepare for you to leave.
Yeah.
So their feelings were hurt.
I mean, there's things that you can, well, you know what? Actually, some companies can't, right? They're just too small, don't have enough growth opportunities, so their options are limited.
Right.
But other employers have many opportunities to help people stay and grow, and let people slip between their fingers. So, you hope that people learn their lessons, but we know that they don't.
Yes.
So I don't know if it was my most memorable, but it's just what came to mind. I thought it was really funny and creative. But, I've talked about this company a bunch of times. I worked at a restaurant call center company. They did other things, and this gentleman resigned by leaving a bereavement card on their manager's desk, about, the condolences to losing him. And he scratched out certain words to make it applicable. And I just thought, we were dying. We thought it was so funny. And he didn't give notice. He literally left a bereavement card on her desk and left.
Oh, wow.
So it was like that. And then interestingly enough, that same operations manager, probably like a year later, came in my office to impulsively quit. Just had a bad day and was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving. And I ended up talking her out of it. Mm-hmm. And she still works there today.
Oh, wow.
So
I wonder if
I don't know if she's cursing me or...
I was going to say, is she cursing you or thankful?
But she was out. And I was like, let's talk through this, So I don't know. I just thought that was interesting.
The bereavement card is hilarious.
Yes.
It's pretty great. Well, mine is not as, uplifting as that. My most memorable was when I resigned from a job. I actually gave 4 weeks notice. I wanted to help them train my replacement. I actually wanted to go back to school, and it was before I was in HR, so I hadn't finished my degree. And the person I was training became very upset. And she put her hands on my neck, around my throat, and attacked me while we were doing a training for work that she was going to have to do. So I did end up making a complaint to HR, and HR ended up asking me to write a statement and then pack my belongings and leave. They paid me through my notice, but they said they'd rather move forward with the person who
physically
assaulted me. And then she
Wow.
called no-showed the next day. So not only were they having to pay me for the additional 2 weeks of time, they were out a replacement and they didn't have me to keep working. So they were just out an employee.
And they deserved it.
It was really
Based on how
uncomfortable.
they manage that.
And that actually was kind of one of the things that made me interested in HR. How to do that
How
differently.
they blew it. Yeah. They blew that.
Well, and
Scary though. Scary situation you have been put through, and then for them to respond that way. Oh gosh.
It wasn't right.
And I don't understand why managers or professionals can't see or hear the red flags. Like, that's a red blanket flailing in the air. Like, let this other person go. They've put hands on somebody. That is...
But it's like she was resigning, so almost what she said wasn't
Valid.
valid.
I had a witness. It didn't matter.
Right.
What is it?
For them to respond that way.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine at this point of your career, someone telling you the story and there's so many things that we would do that's the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's pretty alarming. Hopefully that person's not still in HR.
Resigning from a job is a difficult decision. Depending on who you're talking to, the fault often lies on the opposite party, but usually it's way more complicated than that. To drive discussion today, I'm going to read off some stories, questions, and some stats, and I want to hear your perspective from both an HR standpoint and someone who's an experienced professional. Let's start with a story. When I was in grad school, I worked as a waiter. Well in advance, shortly after receiving my syllabus, I requested a weekend off for a seminar relevant to one of my classes. Our professor had made attendance at this seminar mandatory, and it factored significantly into our grades. So now the weekend of the seminar comes up, and lo and behold, I'm scheduled doubles Friday through Sunday. I hunt down the manager and say I can't work that weekend, and I've given plenty of notice, months. She pulls the requests are just requests, not guarantees, and I told her point blank, I will fail this class if I do not go. She shrugged and said, that isn't my problem. I told her, it is now, and I left. Like hell, I was going to fail a class for my master's degree waiting tables at a rainforest cafe. Oof. Let me accompany this with a stat. According to Pew Research, 2 leading reasons why workers quit is feeling disrespected and lack of flexibility. What are your thoughts on this story, knowing that his quitting was a direct result of the manager's actions?
Well, we hear this type of story all the time where managers will put their foot down on requests for time off or all sorts of different things. Mm-hmm. And it's just so unwise. It's like, is your goal, and understanding, like at a restaurant, staffing is everything, right? Making sure that you have enough staff. And, the bad thing is, like, a lot of times you get scheduled for these things, then you get cut early anyway at restaurants. So they make you, like, clean the bottom of chairs.
Sparkle.
It's just so unwise to do this because you're going to lose a good employee potentially most of the time. I mean, even if they don't quit right then and they call out or whatever, and then you think you're going to write them up, like they're going to care. I don't know. Like sometimes as a manager, sometimes maybe she have to wait tables that day.
Or could she have helped them try to find another employee who was willing to trade? Could they have done a portion of the scheduled shifts and not all of them? I mean, how could they have worked together on it instead of just no? Right.
If you have to schedule somebody for doubles on a Friday through Sunday, you're short-staffed.
Yes.
Hire someone and put them in training. At a rainforest cafe, come on.
How busy are they?
Pretty busy. You can't get a table there
actually,
without waiting. At the Mall of America, anyway.
Oh, wow.
I went to the one in Vegas. It was relatively busy. Yeah.
I can understand his frustration. Mm-hmm. Maybe don't quit right then and there when she says no. Maybe call in sick and take a write-up, or, instead of just getting so frustrated that you just walk off the job and say, I quit over a discussion. Like, hey, listen, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to call in sick on this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'm forewarning you now, but I cannot miss this for my master's.
Well, they gave a month's notice. Why didn't she tell them sooner?
Agreed. Hey,
we can't cover this.
Because something else happened that she was honoring.
Right.
Or something. We don't know the whole story. We don't know if he actually quit. Maybe it's now just means like, I'm not coming in this weekend regardless. I don't care what the ramifications are. But he probably quit because restaurants are hiring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can verify that with the context this was given, he quit.
Well, I think education is more important than working doubles, so I agree with them.
Working doubles at a restaurant, I've personally done that. It's terrible.
Exhausting.
It's terrible.
My mom and I'm getting off topic, went out to dinner with at the Mall of America. And this lady had a broken foot and a boot. And she had said that she was working a double. Like, what? I mean, isn't there some sort of, I don't know, not a work comp claim, an accommodation? Because we don't know if it happened at work.
What's an accommodation for a waitress?
She could be behind the bar on a stool. She could do expo on a stool. She could have frequent breaks. She could be a hostess.
But also you're assuming because she works for tips.
True.
Right? You know how many tips she probably got with that boot on? When I used to, this is a long time ago, but this waitress, and she was a waitress, like she was a professional waitress, that's what she did. And she said the most tips she ever made was when she was like 7 through 9 months pregnant. And she, you know, because people just, you know, I mean, you work hard and you're obviously struggling because you're, you know, making a human.
It's a big job.
So, yeah.
So moving forward, in response to the question, what was the final straw that made you quit your job on the spot? One person wrote, I was in a meeting with the owner of the company who was a difficult guy to work with. He stood up in the middle of the meeting and punched the wall out of frustration. He wasn't doing it jokingly. He bare-knuckled, went at the wall of his own office like he was in a gym punching a punching bag. I sat there in astonishment for about 2 seconds, then stood up and got out of there. Cleared out my desk, exited through the back door without a word to anyone. A second respondent wrote, my boss told me that we were going to spend our breaks doing mandatory Zumba, and I told her I quit, and I left right then. What are your thoughts on these?
There should never be mandatory Zumba. There's never.
You know what is funny though? We actually did host Zumba classes at my last company, but they weren't mandatory.
Right.
And they were fun. It was only once a week, but man, you can't require
No.
anybody to exercise.
There might be health considerations. There could be injuries that could occur. What kind of waivers are you having them? There's so many things.
Zumba's just not fun, though.
Also, Zumba's not fun.
Hold on, Zumba is fun.
I think Zumba's fun.
I like napping, but
Okay, napping is also fun.
I want to know if these two companies have an HR department because I don't think that the mandatory Zumba was properly vetted through HR.
That seemed personal. My boss told me we were going to be spending our breaks during mandatory Zumba. Like, that seems maybe a little targeted. Maybe I'm reading that from an HR perspective, but... And the owner of a company punching a wall? Yeah, I mean, if it's the owner...
probably not going to change that behavior.
Yeah, you're not reporting that to HR.
And even if you do, what are they going to do? The owner has to agree with the actions taken.
I'm always thinking of my own position, which is I do not have the luxury of just walking out of a job.
Yeah.
So I probably wouldn't walk out if I would immediately start looking for another job. Like, I'd be checked out, do the bare minimum, you know, which, by the way, is still more than most people's maximum.
I am not one who has the luxury of just quitting a job or walking out, so I would definitely start looking. The feeling unsafe because the owner's punching the wall, it just baffles me.
Well, no, I mean, look, people are triggered by all sorts of things. You don't know how they were raised.
Yeah.
You don't know their experience with that being escalated. So somebody might have felt super threatened by that situation. And, you know, it is violent. So, yes. Even if I did feel threatened, I don't know what I would do because it's easier to find a job when you have a job. Like, I'd just be doing all those logical things and maybe to my own detriment, actually. You know, sometimes you could out-practical yourself out of good decisions. I don't know.
Debra, when the person you were training put her hands around you, if they were to say, we need you to come finish up the 2 weeks and finish training her, what would you have done?
Oh, no, I wouldn't have finished training her. I mean, I'd already put my notice in. If they expected me to do that, I would have had to decline that very generous offer.
Okay. Because I know you come from a place of logic. You do really think things through, like...
I honestly, when I quit that job, didn't have another job lined up. And it was so risky. But I was also a college student, and I could work in all kinds of areas. Yeah. So I ended up getting a coffee shop job and a couple of bartending gigs, and I worked my way through. When I left that job, the finance director at the company told me, this is the best job you're ever going to have. You're going to come back. What are you thinking? That I want to do better.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have stayed. I mean, if they hadn't paid me through my notice, I don't know what I would have done. I probably wouldn't have known what to do, but I wouldn't have come back.
What an obnoxious thing to say to somebody. And do you think he believed it?
Oh, she did.
Oh, she? Sorry.
Oh, she absolutely did. She stayed there until she retired. She loved that place.
Well, good for her. I'm glad she had a good experience, but you had someone try to kill you.
This is true. I'm glad I don't work there anymore.
Oh my.
I imagine you were expecting them to say, okay, we're going to hire someone else and you're going to train them now.
That is what I expected.
Do you want us to call the cops?
Or that.
Or that, yeah. Like,
I was
let's file a police report.
early
now.
20s. I had no
Are you
idea.
okay? Do you need an ambulance?
Yeah. I didn't know what the right thing to do at that time would have been.
Of course, yeah.
But now I
mean,
do.
But you know what? I think when you're younger, a lot of times also you blame yourself for things. Like what? I mean, I'm just thinking in my early 20s or mid 20s, like I would have been like, what did I do to make that happen?
I did
like,
think
what did
that.
I say?
How should I have trained
How
her
did I trigger
differently?
them? You know what I mean? Like I probably didn't think of the word trigger at that point. But I would absolutely been blaming myself and full of regret for how that all went down, which is sad. Yeah.
Guilt complex.
Yeah.
So regarding those stories, have you guys ever experienced someone impulsively quitting? And have you impulsively quit? And what was the final straw in either of those situations?
I have one. So in my youth, early 20s, maybe 19, I worked with one of my really, really good friends I've known since I was 12. And we had this manager. She was such a difficult lady to get along with. And normally we didn't have to deal with her. We did our own thing, worked our own shifts. Well, one day she got mad. I don't even remember why she got mad or what surrounded it, but we were in the back room with somebody that she was training. So we're all, the four of us are standing in the back room, and the manager gets up and starts screaming and yelling at my friend. And we're just looking like, what is happening? What is going on right now? And then all of a sudden the manager slaps her across the face.
What?
I can't make this up. Slaps her across the face. 2 witnesses plus the girl she slapped. I look at my friend and we're both just sitting there giving each other the look. And I was like, I don't feel safe in this environment. So we walked outside and we ended up, again, 18, 19. We called the police and said, this is what happened. Well, she said that my friend had lunged at her first and made her feel uncomfortable. So that's why she felt okay to slap her across the face. And the cop said, we can't do anything about it. And I was like, I'm not coming back. So that was my only impulsive quitting ever in my life.
Wow, that's, I mean...
Uncomfortable.
Yeah, I don't even know what they're... Yeah, uncomfortable is a great...
Yeah.
I impulsively quit once too, probably around the same age. I was working full-time at this computer reseller. It was a foreign company. And I was at the front desk. And I was the only person at the front. Everybody was in back. And the phone rang off the hook. Right, so it was one of those reception, desks. And the reason it was ringing off the hook was because customer service did not answer the phone and everything was routed back to me. So the rule was at this company, you were not allowed to leave the desk. Like I couldn't go to the bathroom without having someone cover for me. I couldn't go on break without someone covering for me. I couldn't go to lunch without someone covering for me. And nobody came up to cover for me.
No.
So I was like sitting there having to go to the bathroom or not being able to take my break or not being able to take my lunch. And I worked there for a few months, and there were some nice people there for sure. But most of the people had, like, the former receptionist was in the sales department now. Another one was in customer service. Like, people got promoted there, so they stayed. But I was driving to work just one day, and it was like 30 minutes away from my house. And I just turned around. I was just like, I just literally cannot, do this. I was living at home. I mean, it wasn't like I need, it was like I was working because I was paying for school and whatever. And I was going to school at night at that point. And they were like calling me off the hook. I didn't pick up my check. I had stuff at my desk. Like, I remember I had this beautiful picture of my youngest sister on my desk and in a beautiful frame. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm good with leaving it behind. I had I had another copy somewhere else. That's my one story. I never did it again. I was young, but when you're that disregarded, like looking back, they're not going to worry about you being able to go to the bathroom. The fact, and look, if I was an older person, I would have just put the calls on whatever and went to the bathroom. But I didn't do that because I was a rule follower, and that was the rules. You're not allowed to leave the desk, so I didn't leave the desk. So
Meanwhile, you're up at the desk hoping somebody sees you.
I have to pee.
And you were saying a few people in the company had been the receptionist before, so
Yes.
they knew the situation.
Correct. Those are the people that would cover. So there was like a list of people that would take turns covering for breaks and for lunch mainly. And I'd have to call somebody from like sales or something if I did have to go to the bathroom, which I rarely did. Like I wouldn't drink water. Like I would just like I have to sit at this desk all day, you know? So yeah.
Well, I have never impulsively quit a job. I think it through very heavily.
Have you had anybody quit on the spot for you?
Oh gosh, lots of those. There was a gentleman that worked for a company when I was in HR who had some prior police experience, and he was working in a caregiver type of role. And I think he'd been there for a couple of months and was still in training. And he came in one day and turned in his timesheet and said he was quitting and that he was going to report the company to the cops because our other employees were all pushing drugs through the houses that they were working in, which was not true. But it was uncomfortable and odd. And we kind of didn't know how to respond.
You know, it's odd. Like, how would he have even known that? I mean, you literally serviced the one person.
He worked at the one location.
Right.
And so it was just a strange statement.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I've had people, try to intimidate me physically and try to make things happen as far as I want this in my employment or else. And you say, okay, or else. Have a nice day. So just odd ones, but never done that myself. This isn't someone impulsively quitting, but there is an odd situation that occurred where a gal put in her notice. It was effective the same day, and then showed up the following week expecting to go on a work trip that a flight had been paid for. They were going to attend a conference and be representing the company at this conference, and thought she was still going.
So weird.
She'd been paid through her final day. It was just strange that she thought that was appropriate.
Right, like if you really wanted to go on the trip, why didn't you wait to resign till right after?
Resign after. But why did she think she should be going on the trip when maybe she put the wrong date in her letter?
So did she go on the trip though?
They did not allow her to go on the trip.
How did that conversation go over? Was it like, hey, listen, you quit, you can't go. I'm sorry.
I actually did not hear the outcome.
But she didn't go.
Yeah.
She did not go.
And she shouldn't. You can't be representing the company after you...
No.
At a
Highly
marketing type of
inappropriate.
event or something?
Something
of
that nature.
Could you imagine going to that booth and be like, yeah, I just quit last week. This company is awful. I don't think you should do anything with them.
Do you want to hire me?
When I worked in the food service, I had a coworker who would consistently put in his 2 weeks, like every other shift he worked, and then take it back by the end of the shift. I always thought that was interesting. It was always very dramatic. You like go on his break, write it out on a piece of paper, put it on the desk of the manager. Sometimes take it back before the manager saw it, but often would be like, never mind.
I like to call that a serial quitter. I also have had experience with employees like that. They were actually a manager in a former company that I worked with, and they would do that probably every couple months.
Interesting.
I recently heard from someone that worked with them at a different company after we had both left the former business. And apparently he did that with the new company, and they said, we accept your resignation.
Mm-hmm. We caution the serial quitters. They will eventually accept your resignation.
But it seems like it's like an emotional, like they don't know how to like channel their unhappiness or anger or something. So just
or they think they'll get something. It's their way of leveraging, like, you need me. I'm so important here.
Right.
And some companies will just allow them to keep abusing that process over and over and giving them what they want.
I always told my manager, I was like, we should just accept it because like this is going to happen all the time.
It gets kind of
Not
ridiculous.
the most pleasant person to work with either when they're that uncommitted.
It's beyond that, right? I mean, so yeah, there's a behavioral issue there that's troubling. Like if you're unhappy, certainly you could find another job somewhere else in the food service industry for sure. But maybe it was just
customer service isn't for everyone.
Is this where
but it's everywhere.
Is this where we should encourage companies to maybe purchase an EAP for their employees who are struggling emotionally?
Yes. The most underutilized benefit, but such a good benefit.
So moving forward, here's the top 6 reasons for resigning according to Pew Research. Number 1 is low pay. 2, lack of career advancement. 3, feeling disrespected. 4, childcare issues. 5, lack of flexibility. And lastly, poor benefits. While resigning happens due to a poor match with the company, quitting is often the result of an employee feeling that they have no other option. So question, what can employers, leaders, and HR do, if anything, to prevent explosive resignations?
I mean, realistically, you're not going to make everyone happy. You can't.
Never.
But having some type of open door policy to discuss issues when they come up or try to, I guess, mitigate the risk before the employee gets to that explosive point is ideal. Maybe you can't help the poor benefits. Maybe it's not affordable to offer something better, but maybe you can counterbalance that somewhere else.
Yeah, the low pay, I mean, that's difficult because we've been hearing that a lot, right, with all the minimum wage increases and such, that people can't afford to pay, but it's the cost of doing business. I mean, I know for our company, our salaries are our number one expense, right? I mean, and you have to pay to have good talent. So if you're not paying market rate, that's a problem for your business. And you will lose people, always.
They say you can job hop every 2 years, 2 to 3 years, and find a better salary every time.
The low pay thing is interesting to me just because, I actually have a decent amount of experience with this because we were a minimum wage employer at my last company, almost the whole time we were there. And in fact, I was written up for keeping on talking about how pay was an issue for us. And, and their argument was like, oh, people don't stay for pay. They want to, people stay because they want to work here. And we did a lot of things. We spent a lot of money to not pay people, in my opinion. We were having spaghetti days and taco days and hot dog days and like I had to have a T-shirt for every single thing, and you know how many Halloween costumes I have? Nobody cared.
We don't want that,
right? Nobody cares about that stuff. And when I left there, I was like, I don't want to buy another Halloween costume. I'm not buying another taco shirt. It's not your day. I think it's the cost of doing business is to pay your staff appropriately. A lot of times when you're talking to owners of businesses especially, or executives that are paid very highly, they're not relating that they're never going to have the buy-in that you are, nor should they. So, they get aggravated that people don't care. It's like, why would they care? They're making you money, and just barely getting by. There's just such a disconnect, I think, sometimes. And we see that all the time when people make complaints about a certain process or a certain department or something, and then they become the manager of that, and then all of a sudden their whole perspective changes, right? It's like once it's real to you, then it's real, and before that it's not. It's not actually a problem. But for the low pay thing, I just think that being the number one reason, we have a problem right now. We had, 7% inflation last year or this year? It's a lot in 1 year to go up. People are having a hard time making it, and companies are having a hard time making it too. Smaller businesses, not these large corporations who've all increased their prices exponentially,
I don't know if this is relevant or not, but in the Twin Cities, there are Lyft and Uber, and they're actually thinking of pulling out of the cities because of the new minimum wage requirements. They can't afford to pay it. So there are other businesses that are hoping to fill the gap. But even big companies like that can't afford to pay minimum wage in certain areas.
Can't afford or won't afford.
Yeah,
that actually might be a valid.
Yeah, because they would just raise their prices for that market.
Yeah.
So that sounds like a principle thing to me, right? Because I keep on saying I want to read up more on this, but we have like Elon Musk and a bunch of other billionaires are suing the National Labor Relations Board, saying that it's unconstitutional. I don't know enough about that to speak about it. I just remember seeing it, and I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy that that's the place that we're at right now.
Well, the NLRB is making a lot of changes lately.
They are.
Yeah. I think a couple other of these, like the feeling disrespected and the lack of flexibility, I think one of the things is for the leadership team or employers in general, when you hire people to lead or manage or be in a position of power, so to speak, and you notice them being disrespectful to others within the organization, or you notice their improper behavior, I think being quick to make sound decisions based on whether should they leave, should they stay, or do they need a write-up, those kind of things. You need to act quickly as an organization and make good, sound hiring decisions and firing decisions for that matter too.
Now we're going to move on to Ask HR, which is our final segment where users can go on a forum and anonymously ask questions to HR professionals. This question comes from user Weakness Weekly. It is titled, HR says I can't bring in bagels. My folks own a bagel shop. My whole life I've brought bagels. My birthday, bagels. Potluck, bagels. Holiday, bagels. We are bagel people.
I'm also a bagel person, but my folks never owned a bagel shop. Sorry, go ahead.
I brought them to class all the time as a kid, and everybody loves bagels. So when I started working, I started bringing a couple dozen bagels every Friday in a nice little box. That way I get to see my folks once a week, the people get free bagels, nobody's ever complained. Then I started working at this new office. I bring in bagels, everybody's happy, then HR calls me in. She told me, I'm not allowed to bring in bagels because providing office snacks is, quote, HR's job. What the F? I told her they are free. I am not buying them with office money. She says it's not the point. It's not my job. I'm like, fine, I won't bring bagels in. Maybe someone has a food allergy or something. Then, cut to Friday. This same lady brings in bagels, but the grocery store kind, like Sara Lee BS.
Ugh.
So you're not a fan of Sara Lee bagels?
Listen, in a pinch they'll do, but if I have the option of getting good bagels from a family-owned business,
There's a lot of other places to go in a pinch. So then he says, I haven't told anyone about it, didn't say a thing, so they come to me asking why the bagels changed. They're complaining because grocery store bagels are dry garbage and I didn't know anything about it. Then get this, the next week the lady brings in bagels from my folks' shop, same box. I guess it's fine because now my family's getting paid and people get decent bagels again, but why? I was happy bringing the bagels in. Why is HR the only ones allowed to bring in bagels?
Listen, it's not an HR thing. It's a her thing.
yeah, this is this woman's thing.
Yeah, and she has control issues and wants to control all of the fun and all of the food in the organization. So let her do it. Your family's getting money, and it's one less thing you have to worry about. But you can just go visit your folks for fun.
I would love to hear some other issues about the same woman, though, from different perspectives. This is just bagels. This doesn't stop with bagels. That's for
what
sure.
else is her job?
Yeah, that no one else is allowed to do because she decided.
Change the clocks back for daylight savings.
Oh, only her. Only her. Well, that's really interesting. So this is like another situation, and we've talked about this numerous times, of people that give HR a bad name. Like, it's embarrassing that HR says I can't bring in bagels. That's embarrassing to me because it's not HR. It's not HR's job to bring in snacks.
It's not my job.
So that, like, even that part is a whole other thing.
But we do love a good snack.
We love a snack, but it's not our job to bring in snacks.
No.
Sometimes we bring it. Sometimes other people bring it.
Well, I wonder if I really want to know more on this story. Harrison, I really wish we could
say this
research
every time.
because I'm wondering if the next week if she brought the same bagels from his family's company, or if she even got more malicious and she just went to a competing bagel store.
Did she know it was his family's company?
Well, he had been bringing bagels previously.
She didn't know if he was paying for them or not, right?
Exactly. He said he didn't say a word that it was his family's company or he's getting it for free. So
He was smart.
I totally thought this was a woman.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know why.
it
Because
does not say the gender of the person. That was
I
my
feel
bad.
like it's a woman. Just the
And
way
here
they wrote
I
this.
thought it was a man.
Well, and
usual.
there's verbiage in here. I get to see my folks once a week. I feel like that's more of something a man would say, as if I say my parents.
I think that's a Pennsylvania thing.
it could
Yeah,
be.
this does come from Pennsylvania, so bagels are political. Yeah, and now that you point out that it's from Pennsylvania too, I feel like making the Sara Lee choice is a big choice. Like, if you do that here,
Yeah.
it's like Colorado.
Yeah, because the best bagels we have are like it's an argument between Einstein and Panera, like two chains.
See, and up in the cities, we can go to the grocery store and they make their own bagels there, and they're delicious.
They make bagels here, like King Soopers and stuff too.
sure.
They're better than I would expect, but they're not like
Yeah.
a
They're
New
better
York
than
or
Sara
New
Lee.
Jersey. Listen, New York bagels are in a league of their own, but the New Jersey and Pennsylvania ones are second. I'm not going to say close, but they're second to that.
You know what I will say about this lady is at least she took the feedback about the bagels being garbage and she went and got better bagels.
That is true.
That is true.
That's the positive out of the story. And his parents are not getting money.
Well, I think that's all we have for today. We want to thank Debra again for joining us and giving her insight. Thank you, Debra.
Thank you.
And of course, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed your time with us, please subscribe and leave a review. If you have any HR stories or questions to share, message us on Instagram at hr.stew. I'm Holly,
And I'm Regina.
and we'll see you next time on HR Stew.